I'm Caroline, and I've been Buddhist for more than 35 years. I practice now in the Pure Land tradition, Jodo Shinshu, which is Japanese. I have practiced in a number of other traditions in the past, so I've got quite a broad knowledge of Buddhism. I'm retired now, but I used to run a Buddhist centre in which we ran training programs for psychotherapists working from a Buddhist perspective. So today I'll be reacting to some videos for the first time. These are new videos that I haven't seen before for Islam Reacts channel.
إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون وأوفوا بعهد الله إذا عاهدتم ولا تنقضوا الأيمان بعد توكيدها وقد جعلتم الله عليكم كفيلا إن الله يعلم ما تفعلون ولا تكونوا كالتي نقضت غزلها من بعد قوة أنكاثا تتخذون أيمانكم دخلا بينكم أن تكون أمة هي أربى من أمة إنما يبلوكم الله به وليبينن لكم يوم القيامة ما كنتم فيه تختلفون ولو شاء الله لجعلكم أمة واحدة ولكن يضل من يشاء ويهدي من يشاء ولتسألن عما كنتم تعملون ولا تتخذوا أيمانكم دخلا بينكم فتزل قدم بعد ثبوتها وتذوقوا السوء بما صددتم عن سبيل الله ولكم عذاب عظيم ولا تشتروا بعهد الله ثمنا قليلا إنما عند الله هو خير لكم إن كنتم تعلمون ما عندكم ينفد وما عند الله باق ولنجزين الذين صبروا أجرهم بأحسن ما كانوا يعملون من عمل صالحا من ذكر أو أنثى وهو مؤمن فلنحيينه حياة طيبة ولنجزينهم أجرهم بأحسن ما كانوا يعملون فإذا قرأت القرآن فاستعذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم.
How did you feel about the recitation? Did it evoke any emotion?
Yes, I mean, it was very peaceful. And yes, I mean, I found it was kind of like there was that bit of me that was wanting to just be with that rather than reading the words. And then, got to read the words, otherwise you won't know what it's about.
So yeah, a few different topics kind of mentioned in this chapter. Specifically about justice, fulfilling promises, and also mentions about gender. So yeah, I just wanted to get your kind of thoughts on these things.
Well, I think one of the things I picked up from it, actually, which you didn't mention, was the idea of free will, because there seemed to be a tension in it between, on the one hand, free will, but on the other hand, but if you do the wrong thing, then we got you, kind of thing. So I thought that was quite an interesting one, and I think a perennial one, actually. And in a way, it speaks to some of the things you were asking about Buddhism, because we make our choices, and actually from a Buddhist point of view, I think the question of free will is quite interesting, because yes, we might have free will, but do we actually have free will? Because we're so driven by our mind states and our karma and so on, that we can say that actually we have very little free will and we have very little control over our actions, because we're being driven by a whole lot of factors, both of our own and cultural things and everything else. Our minds are very much conditioned, and our beingness is conditioned, and so
I see that. I guess maybe a counter would be, if I pick up this phone, for example, I've got the free will now to keep it in my hand or drop it. So there's that basic level of, you come across a situation, you have a free will to choose what you're about to do in that. And that is part of the test that we believe, you are thrust into these situations to see how you're going to be. And often it's kind of a process where you're tested, similar to when the fire is cleansed, the gold is cleansed by the fire and the purity is extracted out of it. Similar to that, you're constantly tested. The free will is definitely a very deep topic. Islamically, we believe humans have free will, but it's limited by divine. It's not absolute free will. So it's like a bubble, within God's free will, or God's will, sorry. But obviously it gets very, deep and.
Well, it's making me think of a quote from Shinran where somebody goes to the teacher and says, "How do I know what I should do?" And the teacher says, "Well, go out and kill 1,000 people." And he says, "I couldn't possibly do that." He said, "Well, just think yourself lucky, because you don't have the karma that you can do that." So it's like, it's not your goodness, it's not your badness that makes you go out and kill people or do other, it's obviously an extreme, but makes you go out and do things. It's actually a product of what you've grown up with. And you can see that all the time. I mean, people who've grown up in a family where everybody is violent, everybody has a whole lot of negative views, everyone's whatever persuasion, you grow up with that in your mind. It's very hard to actually go against that and become different. So we're much more subject to the conditions that we've grown up in, and the conditions of our own actions, but also the conditions of those around us, than we are to ourselves. So the whole question of free will, I think, is something interesting. So something I kind of heard in that and thought, oh yes, that's...
Yes, I guess kind of, when it's talking about the promises and breaking promises, it goes back to that whole concept of judgment. I think with Islam, it has the carrot and the stick, There's that promise of reward being good, and then there's that threat of punishment, which I think that's how society works as well. That humans, they need that. Some humans, they react better to the threat of punishment. some humans, they react better to the desire for reward. So yeah, I don't know, what is your thought on that, especially in the sense of how practically a society works, because Islam is very focused on reforming society as a whole. It does obviously focus on individual,
Yes.
but a lot of things that to prevent harms in society overall. So yeah, I'd be curious to know your perspective on this. And
Yes. Well, I think it's complicated. I think, but I would see, in terms of criminal activity and so on, I think there do need to be, but I think it's much better done by changing conditions than it is by harsh punishment. So, education, creating social conditions that are more conducive, so more caring. If you surround people by caring, if you make sure that they have the basic resources that they need, you've gone a long way to providing good conditions. I think at the moment, society is under a lot of threat from a lot of the stuff that's around on internet and social media and all that kind of, all these ideas that are around. I think I'm much more interested in tackling those rather than kind of hauling up certain people and punishing them. That said, I think some people, there does need to be some restraint for the sake of themselves and for society. If somebody is, a serial killer or whatever, to take an extreme, then I don't think you can just take an attitude of, oh, well, never mind, just go away and don't do it again.
so how would you reconcile that with the teachings of your school, for example, where you say that, okay, now practically we need to do something about the serial killer?
Well, I think it would be in not seeing it as punishment so much as in creating conditions in which the person can't go on doing that. I think it would also have to be done with a sense of, and there but for fortune go you or I kind of idea, that I could equally be doing that in different circumstances. And so I have an empathy for the person. And at the same time, it's not going to be good for him or for me or for other people in society for this person to be allowed to just carry on doing whatever it is.
Yeah, it reminds me of, we have a similar phrase in Islam, which is prevention is better than cure.
Yeah.
So preventing that thing, disease happening, is better than trying to cure it, obviously. So yeah, interesting.
Yes. So it would be, I would be setting up the conditions. I would be looking for the most compassionate rather than the most punitive solution. But ultimately, it's not good for anyone for these things to keep on.
Yeah. Also, another thing towards the end was about the gender equality. So obviously in Islam, there's a lot of misconceptions, but in the sight of God, they're equal, male and female. Whoever performs good deeds,
Yes.
they will be rewarded equally, as
Interesting. Yes.
yeah. I just thought this is one of the reasons I chose this particular passage, because it mentions that, and obviously you made mention of that before. So what do you think about?
Well, I think a lot of the stuff on gender is in all traditions, is cultural rather than in the core of the religion. But I don't know enough about Islam to know kind of what's there in the core of it. But certainly in Buddhism, for the most part, there's no distinction between men and women in terms of, but culturally, it's different in different countries, and there have been struggles. And even when you get the stories of Shakyamuni Buddha, you've got stories of how there was a women's movement who came up and demanded that they could be ordained as well. And he ordained them, but there were a whole lot of provisions put in that they had to defer to the monks and so on. Yeah. So, but, how much that really dates back to Shakyamuni Buddha and how much that's later stuff that's got introduced.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't want to misrepresent Islam and not give a holistic view. So I think clarify, spiritually they're equal, men and women.
Yeah.
Islam does put in roles for each gender, so it sees that men and women are not exactly the same. Otherwise, they would both be called men or they would both be called women. there is some differences. A woman has the ability to obviously produce bear children. Their bone density is weaker. They have less strength generally. So Islam recognizes these things, and it puts different like genders in different roles for that reason. It's more traditional, the man has to be the protector, the provider. The woman, she's the the mother of society essentially, where the children are coming from her, and the morals and things, because the man is often out. So yeah, it doesn't believe in complete equality. It believes in justice, I would say. So sometimes giving equality can actually become injustice. For example, you wouldn't treat a child the same way as a grown adult. In some ways, you're going to help the child more because they need it. So similar, it's not completely equal. It's right in the right places, I would say.
Yeah.
But spiritually, it's equal. Like this verse shows. You mentioned that maybe Buddhism doesn't have strict teachings on certain things, and going back to some of the other things as well. Like, for example, in this chapter, it's warned about breaking your oaths and promises and things like that. It's kind of going back to morality.
Mhm.
How is your tradition? How does it define right and wrong? Because in Islam and obviously many other religions as well, we believe that humans can't define it because it changes radically from time to place. And, for example, in some societies, cannibalism completely fine. All these concepts change, and that's why we believe that has to be an external force which decides what's right and wrong. Yes, there's some level of feeling involved in there, which is, we call this the fitra in Arabic, which is what we believe God created each human on, this inclination for a feeling of right and wrong. But it's not definitive. Like when you get to more complex issues, or, if someone's, we believe that inclination can be corrupted.
Mm.
So someone might start thinking it's okay to kill people.
Yeah.
So yeah, Islam is very clear with morality coming from God, and that's what is moral. How does that kind of, in your tradition, how would you address that?
Well, I suppose a couple of things I would say. There is not one set of rules. It's one thing. We don't have a holy book in the way that you have the Qur'an. There are texts, many texts, and different traditions will revere particular texts, but they're not seen as being the word of God in the same way. So I think that's one thing. We talk about Dharma. Dharma is the teachings, but it's also the fundamental truth. And so I think there is a sense in Buddhism that Shakyamuni Buddha had the experience of enlightenment. And this is something that, in theory, all of us can achieve. And in Pure Land Buddhism, all of us will achieve through birth in Pure Land, whatever that means. But that is basically not being transformed oneself so much as connecting to and understanding Dharma. And Dharma is like the basic truth of life. It's what's there when all the layers of conditioned mind, conditioned being, human stuff is stripped away. So there is this sense of this fundamental truth that is there, and that is the Dharma.
And it's interesting because I think it just instantly reminds me of obviously links to Christianity as well, with the prophet Job. We call him Ayyub in Arabic, and he, I don't know if you know his story from the Bible. He was essentially,
He did, yes.
yeah, he's essentially stripped of everything. His health, his wealth, his family, everything was taken away, and that's, I describe them as like veils, where all these things, they're veiling you from the truth, which is kind of what you're saying as well. Although we would say the truth is God.
Yeah.
That's when you truly see the purpose of your life and all you have left, when you strip all of these things away.
Yes.
They're all distractions. It's interesting to hear you say that, because it's...
Well, and that is an interesting parallel. And yes, I'd forgotten about him, and that sense of like when you hit rock bottom, and in a way, it reminds me of people with addictions, it's often when they hit rock bottom, they hit that point of truth where suddenly they realise what they're doing and they break through to something different.